As you can see in this footage, and I'm sure you're aware, Maui has been absolutely devastated by out of control wildfires that have forced mass evacuations, 11,000 tourists being evacuated, 36 people reported dead as of when we are broadcasting. It is likely that that number will go up. There's a search ongoing. We're hearing conflicting reports about how much of the fire has been contained. It seems like the worst of the damage has been done. But now there's the situation of trying to wade through all of this and see how many lives have been lost, both directly to the fire and indirectly from the devastation that it's wrought, particularly to Lahaina, which is one of the most historic towns in Hawaii, the former royal capital of Hawaii before American colonialism. We know as of right now, 270 structures damaged or destroyed, homes, businesses, historic structures, a 200-year-old church. There's the Baldwin home. It was originally occupied by a 19th century physician who helped save Maui from an epidemic of smallpox. That's seemingly greatly damaged. A 150-year-old banyan tree that was planted in 1873 by Christian missionaries, also affected. Absolutely devastating. Seeing people, and we've known this since yesterday, the devastation is so bad, the wildfires moving so quickly with almost no control whatsoever, that people were forced to flee into the literal ocean, being picked up by Coast Guard ships because they could not return to the land because of the ongoing fires. So all of this is devastating. It is likely to get worse, before it gets better. More bad news likely to come in. But Mondale, what do you think about this?
This is unbelievable. This combination of perfect storm where you got these winds that's caused by Hurricane Dora that just passed Hawaii, and then you see all of this destruction, like you said, of all these historic buildings, this historic tree, which is probably one of the most visited things on the Big Island. This is absolute devastation. Who can imagine that you're in Hawaii and you need to jump in the ocean not to cool off or to relax, but the only way to save your life, and pray that Coast Guard picked you up. I mean, the fact that 36 people are already dead that we know of, on top of what we don't even know what's gonna be when all of this is taken, when they're looking at and they have a chance to go over what's happening. It's extremely scary. I think for me, what's blowing my mind is the Pacific Ocean is not that friendly at all.
Yeah.
On a normal case, and you're talking about the winds moving because of hurricanes, so I don't even know what's going on or who's lost at sea. So I'm really nervous about measuring the devastation beyond the 270 structures that have been destroyed, the old structures. I'm talking about the human life and what's that gonna be like at the end of all of this.
Yeah, how many people might still be missing? How many people, we might have to wait weeks to know how many have been affected by this. And thankfully, look, people are paying attention. It certainly took a little while for the news to spread. Admittedly, there are a lot of areas of the US that are being affected, by extreme weather and tragedies like this, including fatally. Lots of people, as we're going to talk about later in the show, dying from extreme heat in different parts of the country. But even the president put out a couple of messages about what's going on, saying, Jill and I send our deepest condolences to the families who lost loved ones in the wildfires in Maui. Our prayers are with those whose homes, businesses, and communities are destroyed. We are grateful to the first responders putting themselves in harm's way to save lives, as always, and says that he has ordered all available federal assets on the islands to help with the response, and wants people to continue to follow evacuation orders, which obviously in some cases are very difficult to follow. And there are always people who don't want to, they're terrified of losing everything, and so a terrible situation. And I'll also say, we talk about things that happen outside of the continental US quite often. Very rarely do I have any direct connection to it or any direct experience with it, because growing up, my family didn't really travel and all that. Maui is one of the very few places that I've actually been outside of the continental US. I've stood under that tree. It is amazing. It is a marvel of nature. I proposed to my wife in the waters off the coast of Maui, and just thinking about other people needing to throw themselves into those waters to in some cases only briefly save their lives is just devastating. This is the United States. And I know that everyone on Maui was doing everything that they could to try to control this. But that's the first responders. That's the literal last line of defense against this. There is so much that could be done hypothetically, to prepare on the islands for events like this, but also to make the conditions that make these emergencies as bad as they are. We could be warding these things off. And so it's a failure on multiple levels to leave people on the island to desperately try to save lives and save property without the necessary resources. And so it is just truly devastating to see this. And I really hope that America doesn't look away, that they take a long, hard look at what happened and try to avoid future tragedies like this from occurring.
Yeah, I think also, John, if I can add a little bit to that, the idea that we need adults in the room. We're talking about preparing for these types of storms, this type of disaster because of climate change. We need adults talking about this and not the children that are sometimes displayed on the Republican side of the aisle, where people are discounting the dangers, calling this hyperbole. What's happening in Maui right now is not hyperbole. This is a real tragedy. And like you said, when people don't have proper resources, 911 can be severed. Like in this case, that's what happened. We didn't have backup for 911 lines when they were severed because of these fires. And I think people making small of what's happening because this world is heating up because of humans. It is absolutely dangerous, and people lose their lives because of it.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.